So I'm going to create a couple of videos here that hopefully will outline not just the how you would create an assignment, but why you would in the context of a winterize your AsULearn course environment. The assignment can be a great way of still being able to collect files even if class has been canceled. So whether or not you're choosing to create assignments throughout the semester for students to upload files to you, or whether you'd rather just use this as a just-in-time option for students to submit an assignment to you if class is canceled, really doesn't matter. The steps are going to be the same. So you could create one of these and hide it in your course and use it only if necessary, if you'd prefer to still collect those papers in class. But it would give you the flexibility to still collect papers on the due date. I would say that it's a good idea sometimes to try this out before you're put in a high stakes environment. So I do encourage you, if you plan to collect files through the assignment, it's a good idea to have a couple of assignments before it becomes a high stakes situation. So it might be a good idea to try this out even if you don't plan to use this all the time in your course. But let's go on to the steps for creating your assignment. And I'm going to go ahead and the first step, I'm going to turn editing on in my course. So I'm in a course where I'm the teacher, and now I'm going to scroll down to the section that I want to add this assignment. So I'm going to click on the Add an Activity or Resource here. Let me pull this down just a little bit so you can see that up at the top I have assignment here. You used to have to choose early on what kind of assignment you wanted. Now you can kind of think about an assignment tool as being like a block of clay where you're going to decide to shape it into the assignment that you want. So it may seem like there's a lot of options for you to choose from, but it's really because there's a lot of flexibility in the way that this tool allows you as the instructor to create different settings for this. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and I'm going to click Add. And then now you've got a couple of areas here, and I'm not going to spend the time to enter all of this information now. But assignment name is going to be what's going to appear on the AsULearn page. The description is very important. I would suggest that this is where you should put a lot of the details about the types of files that you want, kind of what you're expecting the students to do. It's a good idea to include any information that students would need before submitting this file to you. And then next, as you scroll through here, look at some of the options that you have in terms of any availability options. The submissions from this date are when you're allowing submissions from students. The first day that you allow the submissions. The due date is when the assignment is due. And then finally this cutoff date. If enabled, this means that the assignment will not accept any submissions after this date unless an extension has been granted. It determines when the submit button in AsULearn is going to go away for the students. So as I keep scrolling down, submission types. Online text is where students are able to type in the rich text directly into this editor field for their submission. What I have checked, and what should be checked by default for you, is the file submission. And this means students are able to upload one or more files as their submission here. I'm going to skip over some of those other options. The maximum submission size, really we have this set very high. Most PowerPoints or Word documents could be set very much lower, but we have this set at the max just to make sure it doesn't become an inconvenience for you. As you open up these, the feedback types really are the ways that you have the options of providing feedback to students. So you can enter some kind of narrative feedback in a comments box, or you can create some kind of feedback file for students. So if you're doing sort of marking up a Word document and sending it back, the feedback file would be what you're after. I think submission settings, as I skip over a couple of these, submission settings will be what the students need to do to submit this. We recommend that you leave all the defaults as no, because these really do create additional steps for students that if they're not completing them could be a problem for you. The attempts reopened, this is going to determine how the student submission attempts are reopened, and your available options are going to be never, which means that students cannot reopen the submission, manually, which means a student submission could be reopened by the teacher, or automatically until pass means that the student submission is automatically reopened until the student achieves a certain grade that you're setting for this assignment. Group submission settings, this can be really helpful if students have been divided into groups and will be submitting one common document for them. I would suggest that make sure that you have all your students set to groups. This is kind of an all or nothing sort of assignment. So if you have students who have not been placed in a group and you try to allow them to submit in groups, all students who aren't in the group are going to be placed in a default group, and this default group will be a group where all of the students in no group are set to, and any of their files would then be available to the other members of that default group as they upload them. This has caused a little bit of confusion. So if you choose to have students submit in groups, I think the punchline is just to make sure that all students are in a group. So notifications, this would be about how graders are going to be notified. We have these set to no to prevent you as instructors from getting a lot of additional emails. And then our default setting for notifying students is set to no. So you could change this to yes, and then the students would be notified as soon as you grade it. But there's also a feature in the assignment once you've graded them if you choose to do that. But the default is set for no. The grade, and this will be the final thing that I'll go over in this assignment. The grade right now is set for simple direct grading, which is the traditional method that most instructors have used to grade these assignments. But notice there's a marking guide and rubric options, and there's actually a separate workshop, an online workshop on rubrics and marking guides that might be helpful. But notice that you have some options for the types of the types you'd like to put in here, the types of scales that you might use, the point values that you could put this in here, any kind of grade categories. The grade is an area that if you're just using this for a sort of a Dropbox kind of area for students, you could even set this for no grade and give students the grades in some other fashion. But if you're using the AsULearn gradebook, it's a good idea to set this up so that your grades are automatically going in the gradebook and being calculated in that way. So that was a lot to cover here. I'm going to stop with this because it's becoming a very long video, and this is an area too that if you have any questions about how to set up, I would encourage you to contact myself or the other folks in LTS to set up. But that's the kind of the overview for how you might set up an assignment in AsULearn.